Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am going to do a video today on my birth, my labour and birth, but obviously I've got 3 children already and I am pregnant with number 4, so I thought it would be cool to tell you all about my pregnancies and my labours and how it all went. So I'm going to start with my first son, Lorenzo. I had a pretty good pregnancy actually. I was still working at the time. I worked as a carer, so I looked after disabled children and adults, the elderly. I really liked it. It was quite a physical job, obviously, having to roll people over and hoist people up and things like that. So it did get to a point where I had really bad SPD, and I went to the doctor and he advised me to not work anymore. So I think I got signed off work for 3 months prior to me giving birth, or to my due date. So Lorenzo was due on January the 28th, 2014. That day came and went, and so did the next day, and so did the next day. I was about 2 weeks overdue. He was as late could be. So I had an induction date of obviously 2 weeks after my due date. Basically I was due to be induced 2 weeks after my due date, and 2 days before my induction, no sorry, 3 days before my induction, I woke up early hours of the morning, went to the toilet, and I was covered in blood. I seem to have bled with all of my pregnancies actually, which is a bit frustrating, but yeah, so I was covered in blood, and I remember calling out to my husband. I was like, Dan, I'm bleeding, I don't know what to do. So he said, just call the midwife or like the labour line. So I called and they suggested to come in so they could sort of have a little look and figure out where it was all coming from. So I did that. Luckily I had all my bags packed, so we went to the hospital and they just said, well, you're obviously overdue, he's well and truly cooked in there, we may as well induce you now. So obviously I was a bit unprepared for that. I'd had in my head that we'd had like 3 more days until he was here. So we they moved me to the antenatal ward, gave me an induction. So I had the pessary, which I don't think they do now. So it's like a flat tampon and they insert it onto your cervix, and it's supposed to release a hormone that is supposed to like thin your cervix and blah blah blah. You probably all know this anyway. So I had that. A couple of hours later I went to the toilet and I looked down the toilet and it had fallen out. So I don't know if the woman had put it in properly or not, I'm not sure. So I basically told the woman and she put another one in, and I was walking around and around the hospital. Dan went home by this point because it was like midday, I think. It was around midday, yeah. So he went home, had some lunch, sorted himself out, and by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon my waters had broken. I'd just got back from coming to the toilet and I was just about to hop into bed, and there was just this massive pop and massive gush. So I rang the bell, obviously to get the midwives to come and just sort of clean it up because there was a huge puddle. So yeah, so that was a good start. So obviously I knew my waters had gone, great start. Now I didn't feel any contractions like for the rest of that day, and it was so annoying. I was walking around, I was on the ball, I didn't lay down because I was like, right, I've got to keep moving, I've got to get this baby coming. Nothing was working. It was so annoying. So when my waters went, I called Dan. I was like, my waters are broken, it could happen soon. So Dan came back and waited for hours and hours, and obviously nothing happened. So I was like, look, just go home, nothing's happening, try and get some sleep and then come back like when I call you. So he went home. I tried to get some sleep in the end because it was like gone 10 o'clock at night and I was just so tired. So I tried to get some sleep, and then about 1 o'clock I started to contract, and they came thick and fast. It was like 1 minute I was fine, and then the next minute I was like in agony. So I called the midwives and she checked me, and I think I was about 3 centimeters. So she said, well, I'll run you a bath. So I got in the bath and tried to relax. As you know, it's difficult to relax whilst you're having contractions. So I called the midwife in the end when I was in the bath, and I said, look, can you call my husband because I'd like to have him here with me, just as like moral support. So it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and Dan eventually came to my side in the bath, and I was just in agony. I couldn't get comfortable. I was on my back, on all fours, puking over the side of the bath as well. That is one thing I do during labour, is just puke, and it's just horrible. I'm like, pass me a bowl, but we didn't have any bowls in the like the bath, so I just head over the side, really attractive, and just puked at the side. Nothing was really happening, but I was in like a lot of agony. I don't know, it's because it was my first labour. I didn't know what to expect. I think with your first labour, you kind of just, I don't know, hope everything goes the way that you want it to, and you don't expect it to be as painful as it is. But it was, even more so than I ever imagined ever before. So I got out the bath, Dan dried me up, got me dressed and everything like that. He was really brilliant. I ended up going back to the room. Luckily we had a big room on our own, which was great. And the lady checked me, and I was like only 4 centimetres. I was like, oh no. But because I was 4 centimetres, they managed to move me across to the labour ward. So I think once you're 4 centimetres plus, you're classed as like labour, like fully in labour. So they moved me to the labour ward, so I wasn't on the antenatal ward, which was good. I got to about 7 or 8 centimetres, and it was long. Like my labour overall was about 25.5 hours with Lorenzo, from being like 3 or 4 centimetres, I think, to him coming out. So it was a long old time, and it was just so slow. So I got moved to the labour ward. I tried to sort of just carry on walking around, dealing with it, drinking water, all that sort of stuff, paracetamol, gas and air. Oh, I love the gas and air. So that did take the edge off, but I think because it was so long and so exhausting, I opted for the epidural because I just had no energy whatsoever to even think about pushing him out. So they gave me the epidural, and I didn't realise actually it was a top-up thing, so I can press a button and like have more if I felt I needed to, which was quite cool. So obviously to begin with I could still feel contractions and things like that, but it wasn't, it was a lot more bearable. So I was a lot more comfortable. I started to enjoy it a lot more. I remember the weather just being absolutely horrendous. Obviously it was February and it was really dark and dingy, just absolutely pouring down with rain. And I remember my husband thinking, oh, today of all days, because he's a Liverpool supporter and Liverpool were playing Arsenal, I believe. And yeah, it was quite a big game. But I was pushing in the room and I had my legs up, and I remember Dan being in between my legs with his phone, and he'd managed to stream the football game whilst I was labouring. I mean, I didn't care because I was off my face on gas and air and stuff like that, so it really didn't bother me, and it was just really funny because I remember him, I was pushing, and then I remember him going, yes, 3-0 or 3-1 or something like that, and I think they were something like 3-0 up within 10 minutes, and he was really chuffed. I remember it so vividly, and he obviously got to witness me and be there for me when I needed him, but he also got to watch his beloved Liverpool play, which was just, yeah, it was funny. But I genuinely didn't care because I had so much gas in there, and I think by this point I was like, I think I'd had the epidural, and I was just so shattered that I was like, oh, it doesn't even matter anyway. I was pushing for a very long time, and Lorenzo was happy in there, like nothing was happening to his heart rate or anything like that, but he just was not coming out. Every time I was pushing, they'd sort of like see his head, and then I'd stop pushing and he would disappear again. He was actually twisted, so it wasn't back to back, but he was just sort of like side on, so it was really difficult for him to come out that way. So they thought maybe sort of leave me for a bit longer, keep pushing, see how we get on, and nothing happened. So they wheeled me down to theatre, which was a scary time because I thought, oh my god, C-section, he's gonna get cut out. I really didn't have that in my have that prepared. I wasn't like mentally prepared for that. So I got down to theatre, and they said that they were going to try the suction cap first, and obviously I still had to push whenever I had a contraction just to sort of help things along anyway. So the suction cap was obviously put onto Lorenzo's head, and I remember, and I also remember being told by my husband how graphic it was. The woman, the midwife, the doctor had her leg on the bed and she was pulling with all of her might. And I remember I had my head up and I was pushing so I could see her, and all of a sudden the suction cap lost suction, so she sort of fell backwards and all I saw was just blood squirt everywhere. And in my head I just thought, oh my god, that is my baby's head, what has happened? Because I literally just saw red everywhere, and the suction cap coming off and the woman falling back, and I was like, oh my god, what is happening? Anyway, they all started laughing after I said, was that my baby's head? And they just all started laughing and made a bit of a joke about it, and it just sort of relaxed me a little bit. And she said, okay, so obviously the suction cap isn't quite working, so we need to do the forceps. So I had an episiotomy, which if you don't know, then it is where they cut you just to make it easier for the forceps, I guess, to sort of fit in properly. So I had the episiotomy and then I had the forceps, and again the woman, she was just pulling with all of her might, and I was giving it all my all, and she said, look, you really need to do this. I'm going to give you one more go, and if not, we are going to have to give you a cesarean. And I was thinking, oh my god, I just have to do this now. So literally with all my might, with my next contraction, I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and before I knew it, Lorenzo was there and he was crying, and they wrapped him up for me and just plonked him on me, and I just thought, oh my god, I did it. I couldn't believe it. I remember just crying my eyes out. It was just the most emotional and like hysterical moment ever. Obviously for my husband to see everything that he just saw was obviously quite traumatic, and I remember just looking up at him and he looked down at us two and just streaming with tears. He's gonna hate me for saying this, but he was just crying because he'd obviously never seen anything like it, and to witness his son being born, that is literally nothing like it. So yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a traumatic time towards the end, but that really doesn't matter now looking back. You know, he's safe, I was safe. It was an amazing experience, and one that obviously you forget. Just, you know, you forget the pain, you forget the trauma, you forget everything like that, really. Sort of as soon as you hold them, you're like, gosh, everything that just happened was just so completely worth it. And I remember just cuddling him constantly, and oh, it was just amazing. He weighed £8 4 ounces, and he was just so hairy and so dark, and like lots of dark hair, and was just the most gorgeous thing that I'd ever laid my eyes on. It was incredible. And obviously the epidural, it does wear off quite quickly. They wheeled me up to the postnatal ward with Lorenzo, and I just remember hugging him all night. I didn't want to put him down. And then in the morning the midwives came to me with some tea and toast. Obviously it's like the best cure after labour ever, and it always tastes like the best tea and the best toast that you'll ever taste in your life. And yeah, I got Lorenzo dressed and just put him down in the crib next to me, and she said, right, up you get then, go and have a shower, freshen up. And I was like, oh gosh, can I walk? Because obviously the last thing I felt was like the no feeling, if that makes sense. So I didn't feel the no feeling, but I knew that I couldn't feel anything. So I said to her, is it okay if I walk? And she was like, yes, you'll be fine. And I remember like standing up for the first time thinking, oh, this is so weird. And then just walking to the shower, and yeah, the first shower is weird. I remember sort of standing up and feeling heavy on my tummy still, but just empty, if that makes sense. But I was just so elated and so happy. I couldn't believe Lorenzo was finally here after waiting so long for him. But yeah, that was everything that happened with Lorenzo, really. So I hope you enjoyed his pregnancy and labour story, and be sure to tune in for Nico's, which I will upload again for you soon. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.